might as well just start recording. Maybe I better fix this a little bit here. Something doesn't look right. Because this is exactly how all shows should go. And I don't think you hear it on your end, but on my end, the audio is so jacked up, and I don't know how to fix it. We're just going to go with it, and hopefully it sounds good on your end. Welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. You know who I am. My name is Steve Zimmerman, and I'm grateful to have you guys here. And if you like what I do, if you like 2A-related news and content, please like, share, do all the things that everybody else says to do, because it does really, it does help. It does help my reach to get out there farther. I think I have a good message, and I think I enjoy being your voice in the Second Amendment and presenting you with news, which is some of the stuff I'm going to talk about tonight. I don't have any clue how long this show is going to be. It could be long, could be short. Who knows? Who knows where this will take us? But I think I have some good stuff to share with you. This could be really short. This could be really long. I have no idea. So, and I don't even know what to call this episode. So we'll just say, I don't know, Clyde's? No. Well, I'll figure out a name. It doesn't matter. But welcome to episode, what are we at? 297, I believe we're at, of the Range Minded Podcast. Let's jump into the news right away. So today, thanks to John Crump. If you're not following John Crump, you need to. Let me share this screen here for you. So this is from AmmoLand News, and he actually did a live on X today reporting on this, and this is pretty awesome. This is actually a story he wrote for AmmoLand, and if you're not jumping on AmmoLand to get a lot of your news, you're missing out, but this is pretty awesome. And basically what it boils down to is he wrote a letter to, not John Crump, but Representative Andrew Clyde, who is a huge 2A proponent. He fought hard to get the NFA completely dismantled on the big beautiful bill. Obviously, we know how that turned out. Yeah, we're getting a $200 tax break, but who's to say that just can't be put back in? Because it easily could be by whoever's in power next. So his goal, along with many other who were fighting for our rights in Washington, fought really hard to get the one bit of big beautiful bill act, whatever it is, to dismantle the NFA, completely remove suppressors, SBSs, SBRs, any other weapons, that kind of stuff. Just gut it out of the NFA because it is an obsolete and tyrannical use of the government to take away our rights. Anyway, yesterday, Representative Clyde and a bunch of others in Washington sent the DOJ a letter saying, hey, here's the deal. And we will read the letter so you can get an idea. But basically what it says is, listen, with the Big Beautiful Bill Act, it was somewhat of a win by removing the tax from the NFA. But here's the deal. Since there is no tax associated to that archaic bill or archaic tax, why are these items still being regulated and registered under the NFA? Because there's no tax being collected, there's no point for the NFA, is basically what they're saying, which I totally agree. So it is nice to see that there are still some people in Congress that give a damn about your 2A rights. Let's actually jump to the letter right now. So this links to Representative Clyde's X account. I tried to find the letter. I just couldn't find an actual copy of the letter. I wanted to download it and get a better view for you guys. Let me see if I can make this bigger so it's easier for you to see. And if you're listening, well, you're just going to have to listen to me read this letter. Because of how I'm sourcing it, it's hard to read on the screen for you guys, but I'll do my best. It says, Dear Attorney General Bondi, we write to inform the Department of Justice of Congress's position and intent regarding the ongoing challenges. It is really hard for me to see. The ongoing litigation challenges to the National Firearms Act, registration and transfer requirements for non-tax NFA firearms, following the enactment of President Trump's landmark Second Amendment victory on the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. In enacting this bill into law, Congress affirmed its position that the taxation and registration provision of the National Firearms Act are inseparable. They're linked. I can't say that word for some reason. And it expressed its intent to repeal the NFA's registration and transfer requirements by claiming the associated taxes on certain firearms and silencers. Therefore, we urge the Department of Justice to adopt and advance Congress's stated position in all litigation concerning these provisions to ensure that congressional intent is accurately represented and upheld before the courts. So they're saying, hey, this tax is gone. Don't prosecute anybody if they're, if they haven't paid the tax. As you are well aware, Congress enacted the National Firearms Act in 1934, importing an excise tax of $200, equivalent to nearly $5,000 today, on the manufacture and transfer of certain firearms. The NFA also established burdensome registration requirements for gun owners seeking to transfer NFA-regulated firearms, including the submission to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives of personal identifying information such as name, date of birth, demographic details, fingerprints, home address, and the physical location of the firearms. Congress enacted the NFA pursuant to its taxing power under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court in so hard to read on my screen, Gen6 V United States in 1937 held the NFA's registration provisions were supportable as in aid of Congress's proper exercise of the taxing power. The registration requirements under the NFA are in fact inseparably linked to its taxation provisions. Registration serves as the mechanism by which the ATF accounts for the tax paid on each firearm, identified by its serial number. The tax stamp affixed by the ATF to the NFA transfer and registration application reflects both the firearm's serial number and the amount of tax paid for the transfer. Moreover, the NFA's criminal provisions pertain exclusively to the failure to pay or register the payment of this tax with the ATF. On July 4th of 25, President Donald J. Trump signed into law the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which eliminated the transfer and making taxes for certain classes of firearms regulated under the National Firearms Act, specifically Section 70436 of the OBBBA, sets the NFA excise tax to $0 for short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, firearms classified under the NFA's any other weapons category, and silencers. This landmark legislation represents the most significant advancement for the Second Amendment freedoms in many decades. Following the One Big Beautiful Bill Act's elimination of the tax on broad class of firearms regulated under the NFA, the constitutional foundation to apply the NFA's transfer and registration requirements for those zero tax firearms no longer exists. These requirements now operate without any corresponding excise of Congress's taxing power, as the Supreme Court upheld the NFA's provisions only as in aid of that power. And since the relevant excise tax has been repealed, the transfer and registration requirement should likewise be understood as repealed with respect to the firearms now subject to a $0 tax. As members of Congress who support the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and participated in the legislative process surrounding Section 70436 of that act, we wish to reaffirm that it was our intent in enacting Section 70436 to repeal the transfer and registration requirements under the National Firearm Act by eliminating the associated excise taxes for certain firearms. It remains our clear intent that these transfer and regulation requirements shall no longer apply to the firearms subject to that $0 tax for the reasons outlined above. Accordingly, we urge the Department of Justice to adopt the position of the drafters of this provision that the transfer and registration requirements cannot stand without the corresponding excise tax. We further urge the department to assert this position in all litigation concerning this specific section of the OBBBA. President Trump has been the most pro-Second Amendment president in our nation's history, and the Department of Justice has the opportunity to uphold his strong record in protecting the gun owners from burdensome regulations. Thank you for your attention on this important matter. We look forward to working with the Department of Justice to advance additional pro-Second Amendment policies. And then here is signed by. I'm going to go through each one of these because if it's your representation, you need to give them an attaboy or attagirl. Let's look at these names. So, obviously, Representative Andrew Clyde, who penned the letter. Eric Burleson. Both Clyde and Burleson were very active on getting the NFA gone. Scott Perry, Andy Ogles, Ralph Norman, Clay Higgins, Guy Reschlenker, I can't really read his name, I'm sorry. Richard Hudson, Mary E. Miller, Chip Roy, Russ Fulcher, who is my guy. Thank you, Mr. Fulcher. Wesley Hunt, Byron Donalds, Ben Klein, Diana Hashberger. The screen is really hard for me to read because the way never mind. Mark Harris, Barry Moore, Josh Brecking, John Rose, Michael Cloud, Earl Buddy Carter, Barry Loudermilk, who has also been working very hard to protect our Second Amendment, Paul A. Gosar, Adrian Smith, Andy Harris, Austin Scott, Keith Self, Nicholas Bailey, Richard McCormick, Lauren Boberg, and Rick W. Allen. So, if any of those are your representation, you seriously need to tell them thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. So, why is this letter so important? First of all, it shows that they are still active in protecting our gun rights and giving us more of our gun rights back. We talked about the big beautiful bill ad nauseum when it was being discussed and debated before it was signed. So if you want to understand any more of that, jump back to those. Obviously, that was sometime in July, at the end of June. So jump in there and listen to that. I was extremely frustrated that the NFA just wasn't completely gutted whatsoever, along with many other 2A voices. And you should be too. I know there's a lot of folks that don't care about short-barreled shotguns or short-barreled rifles or suppressors, and that's fine. You can feel that way. But there's no reason to restrict these things that are most definitely common. Now, in 1934, when the NFA was written, there was not a lot of firearms available when it came to short-barreled shotguns and short-barreled rifles. There obviously there wasn't a lot. And then when Caetano came in, that was the stun gun case, and the Supreme Court, that made it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they started talking about common use and what constituted common use. And I want to say in the Caetano case, it was somewhere around 200,000. Now we are with Heller, and then with the Bruin decision, there were so many monumental 2A cases to give us, or the judges rather, a framework to understand and to litigate and to give freedoms back to the American public when it came to our 2A rights. If we're going to talk about common use, there are millions of suppressors in the hands of American firearm owners. Millions. So if the threshold is 200,000 under Caetano, we are well within that threshold. Well, what about SBRs? There are well over 500,000. Should we look? Let's look real quick. This is great radio, by the way. Why is my phone not opening? Let's see. How many SBRs in the United States? Now I'm asking GLOCK, so I'm sure we'll get the wrong answer. let's see. So again, if we're using the 200,000 as a threshold, that's let's see, just give me the number. Okay, as of 2024, there were approximately 1.4 million registered SBRs. That's not including AR pistols, but that's SBRs. Well past the threshold, right? It's time. President Trump, Pam Bondi, who I have no faith in, it's time to gut the NFA. These guns are not being used in crimes. Suppressors extremely rarely have been used in crimes. And yes, it's easy to understand that when these things get taken off the NFA, will they be used? Probably. That number will go up in crime, sure. But the people committing crime are committing the crime no matter what they're using. Handguns are by far used more in gun crime than any other platform. If you're just strictly looking at mass shootings, handguns are overwhelmingly used. It's time to gut the NFA. It's time. And by the way, back on the track of criminals using firearms, we have over 20,000 gun laws on the books between state and federal. We could probably prune that down to around 500. And let's execute the laws as they exist. Right? Use the law to the fullest extent to punish criminals because murder's already illegal. Right? Assault's already illegal. Violent crime is illegal. It doesn't matter the implement used, the tool used. Let's execute the laws that exist. Let's actually not let criminals out of jail, or even before they get into jail, we don't throw them out on bond. Come on. It's time. It's time to make the law-abiding public in the United States give them the rights of their 2A in full. Oh, but Steve, does that mean you can own a tank? Yes, you can own a tank, especially in my state. You can own a tank. Well, you can't buy cannons. That's what the last guy in office said. Well, that's BS because you can buy a cannon. In fact, if I wanted to, I could manufacture a cannon. Yes, I got to go through the right hoops, but I shouldn't have to ask for permission to have a cannon. But yes, you can own a cannon. And we can beat that dead horse if we go back to the founding era of this country. If we go to the War of Independence and we look at the privateers in the ocean, we didn't have a navy, but we had private owners who outfitted their ships with cannons and other things, puckle guns and so forth. And they fought for our independence. They actually had more weapons of war than the country did because the country didn't have anything. But private ownership of firearms and other items like cannons and puckle guns. Look up a puckle gun and look at when the dates it was used. We didn't have repeating firearms. Yeah, you should look at history. The NFA was an unlawful tax that was a burden on the poor people in the 1930s. It deliberately attacked minorities and the poor, and then was used as a weapon to take down gangland crime, like the mafia, the mob, whatever you want to talk about. Like, that's what it was used for tax evasion. That they were pinning down criminals on this kind of stuff. And if you really want to dig into the history of the NFA and the SBR thing, the government actually screwed themselves. They almost implicated themselves in breaking the law because they had firearms that were inside the NFA and then they had to switch it. We almost also lost handguns in the NFA. Thank goodness that somebody with some common sense in the 1930s said, whoa, hold on, we need to give them something. And handguns barely made it through. not being regulated under the NFA. Look at the history. You don't have to believe me. Dig into it. Look for yourselves and understand the history of the NFA. I should probably do a show on that, shouldn't I? All right, let's talk about something else. This one I might spend a little bit of time on. I want you guys to see and understand this. This is really intriguing. So let's jump to the next thing. All right, so the other day I was watching a video. So everybody knows the drama with GLOCK right now, right? Thanks to California and Chicago and other places, there was lots of lawsuits. GLOCKs are going to be illegal in the state of California because GLOCK switches. Because an item that GLOCK does not manufacture, that was copied from something that a GLOCK used to manufacture, made overseas, probably in China or South America, dumped into the American streets by nefarious people and used prolifically in gang crime. Now, a GLOCK switch converts a GLOCK pistol, a standard Gen 1 through Gen 5 GLOCK handgun, and maybe, I think it works on Gen 5, maybe up to Gen 4, converts them to a full auto. So any device, according to the ATF, something that changes a firearm from semi-auto to fully automatic is against the law. It's illegal. It's prohibited by federal law to have something that can convert into a firearm into shooting multiple projectiles with one trigger press, which is what these switches do. Again, these are flooding our streets from outside of the country. They're going through the black market. GLOCK has no control over who is getting these GLOCK switches. Nothing. And obviously, the state and federal governments, they must not care too much to really dig into it. Otherwise, they would. So, here we go. We got GLOCK being sued by all these states and cities. And so GLOCK says, okay, we talked about this already, but I'm going to just recap. GLOCK says, fine. We will pull everything from Gen 1 to Gen 5 off of the market. They will no longer be available. And we'll bring out Gen6 V, which will be available in November sometime, towards the end of the month. Great, sure, fantastic. So many of us in the firearms world feel like GLOCK caved. I do feel like GLOCK caved. In fact, I made a post on X. I found out later that this was a bad idea, but I mentioned all the firearms manufacturers, the big dogs in the game. I added them in this comment saying, every one of you need to jump together, meaning manufacturers, and all of you. Let's say this again. Firearms manufacturers in the United States. You probably won't hear this, but maybe some of my listeners will share this with you. Firearms manufacturers in the United States. I encourage you to do the following. Now that GLOCK chose to pull their firearms off of the market and replace it with the latest model, what they should have done is the same thing that Barrett did in California and say, fine, I tell you what, we will not sell any of our GLOCK products to any law enforcement at the state, city, or federal level in the state of California. They will no longer be available. That's what GLOCK should have done. Now, manufacturers of all the major dudes, right? Any of you that have Leo contracts, so FN, SIG, Smith & Wesson, Staccato, any of you guys, you all need to do that. If one of you gets attacked, you're all being attacked. And then we, as American consumers, are the ones that are losing. All of you need to combine your powers like the cool Captain America, not the globalist agenda Captain America. You need to come together and say, our powers combined, we will no longer to sell any of our firearms to your agencies at your state. That's what needs to happen. That is the problem. Because here's the deal, Smith & Wesson, Springfield, Staccato. Once they're done with GLOCK, they're coming for you. Remington is the next one in line. They've already said they're going to go after the Gen 3 clone that Remington came out with Magpul, right? the RXM. They are already saying they're attacking that next. Ruger, tell them to get stuffed. Gun manufacturers, you need to combine your powers together and tell these states, fine, if you're going to litigate against us, we will not sell our products to your agencies. And then the next real problem, this is really where it should start, is where the hell is the Department of Justice on this? Where the hell is President Trump making comments on this? We haven't seen him. He's the best 2A president we've ever had, apparently. Why is not the administration come out and made a comment to these states about this? They are protected by law for this very reason. The idea is to litigate these companies out of existence. That's what these states are doing. And they're going to find every possible way to take these people to court, to draw them out, and to just bleed them by 1,000 cuts. That's their goal. If they can't get rid of the Second Amendment out of the Constitution, they'll remove the availability of firearms within the United States. That's the goal. And until these corporations come together and unite and say enough is enough and have the backing support of the federal government, I mean, we have control of the House, we have the majority of the Senate, and we have the freaking White House. What is going on? I'll tell you what's going on. The people in Washington really don't give a shit, save a few. At least those ones on the letter that we just read earlier. Those are the only ones that really care about your rights. The rest of them, nah. They're worried about donations and re-election. That's it. That's why state levels and city levels are so important, because you feel those directly. But sooner or later, we need to tell Congress enough. And Congress can share and reciprocate in that same thing and join with these firearms companies to tell these states enough. Enough. This is absolutely ridiculous. That's not really what I wanted to... I mean, I wanted to talk about GLOCK, but I didn't expect that rant. So hopefully I don't get in trouble with the powers of the tubes here in a second. But I want to show you something. So the other day, I was watching Mr. Guns and Gadgets. No, Mr. Guns and Gear. Who was that? Guns and Gadgets. Pretty sure that's the name. No. Mr. Guns and Gear. Good grief. Jared. He looks... he's like an uglier version of me. Just kidding. I love you. Anyway, he talked about the new GLOCK V. This is really where we're going. And then I got off on the tangent. And he showed some leaked stuff that he got through. He has a contact at GLOCK, I imagine in Smyrna, Georgia, that shared him some images of the slide for the next generation of GLOCK, which I thought was interesting. But then I was doing some digging on the internet tonight, and I found some patents. This was way back in 23 or 24. I found some old posts it was a Reddit post about the Gen6 GLOCK. So I'm like, whoa, hold on. This is 2024. So I did my best to find all these links to the patent offices and the patent numbers. And I learned something. GLOCK has been working on Gen 6 since 2022. And they have some interesting patents. I want to share with you what's happening. It's Steve with the Range Minded Podcast. And I'm here to share with you a goal that I have for 2025. Now, I've been doing the podcast now since 2018. That's a long time. But it's been kind of a lull as far as people actually subscribing to the show. So I set a goal for this year to hit 1,000 subscribers on each of my YouTube and my Rumble channel. Now, a lot of you people already follow me on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or even TikTok. But very few of you guys actually follow me on where you can watch the show. So do me a favor. As soon as this video is over, jump over to the YouTube channel, jump over to the Rumble channel, and hit subscribe. That would mean the world to me. It may not be much to you, but it is a lot to me. Help me achieve my goal of 1,000 subs this year, and all your wildest dreams will come true. There might be some kind of a disclaimer after that, but you get the point. Anyways, thanks, guys. Take somebody shooting, and as always, stay range-minded. See ya. So let's take a look at these patents, okay? And then we'll look at some of the other slides and stuff. So let's start with, let's see, where do I want to start? So I got a few different pictures here that I want to look at. Oh yeah, let's jump in on this one. And then I'll show you. Okay, so Mr. Guns and Gear had through his contact had shared an image. It was kind of grainy, but it was an image of a slide. Now this patent, this particular set of patent drawings and submission was sometime in 2025. I don't remember the exact date. I just remember the year was 2025. There was another one last July that was submitted. I think it was July 25th of last year. And what I noticed, the reason why I was really intrigued on this, now how did I find these? Let's jump back first. So I was really curious about it. So I was Googling Gen6 GLOCK Vs, and a website or a Reddit post from 2022 popped up, which I was really confused why. And it linked me to this website. It's called worldwide.espacenet.com, which is a patent search for worldwide patents, I'm assuming. You can jump on there. You can just Google, or not Google, in the search bar, put in GLOCK. I put in GLOCK 2025. I put GLOCK firearm, and a plethora of GLOCK patents came up, including the AR style rifle and another rifle, which was kind of cool looking. We'll probably never see that here, but whatever. Anyway, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So what I want you to look at, let me find my cursor. There it is. If you're watching, this is the back of the slide of the Gen 6, at least in this patent submission. Now I want you to look at these two ridges that sit below the striker channel. So this frame is the back and upside down, showing the milled out portions of the back of the slide. So this down here with the plus thing, that's where the striker goes in. That's called the striker channel. But look at these two ridges on either side. Now I thought that was interesting because that correlates with the images that Mr. Guns and Gear shared on his video regarding the Gen 6. Now I thought that was interesting when I was looking at those. And I was curious because he had mentioned about the Gen 1s through 5s don't have that. I just wanted to look at the full size of mine. So let's first look. This is a 17 and it's filthy because I shot it the other day and haven't cleaned it yet. But this is a Gen 3. You can't see it from here. Let me go back to the main screen here. This is a Gen 3 17. Now, hopefully it'll focus here. Come on, focus. There we go. So look, this is the Gen 3 slide. And there are definitely not those two ridges either side of that striker channel. Okay. And this reset little nub here, that's where your trigger reset goes, is a little different than what is shown, at least from what I can tell. And it's hard to tell from those drawings. It looks a little different shape to me. Also, we'll go talk about this too, but the back plate on this guy is a little bit different. I'll show these side by side to the Gen 5. Okay, so the Gen 3 slide definitely doesn't have those ridges. This is a Glock. Was this the 48? I think is what this is. I should know. I want the real guns. The 45. I want the 48. So this is the 45 slide. Come on, focus. Put it in front of my face. Little focus. There we go. So same thing. Look at that. No ridges either side of the striker channel. And the back plate is also different than the Gen 3. It's hard to get that just right in the camera view. And it's also different than the the back plate for the Gen 6. Now, what Mr. Guns Gear was suggesting was these ridges on the slide will prevent GLOCK switches from being used. Now, sure, we can assume that, I guess, but one could easily say, well, I have a Dremel. I can just get the Dremel out and just take those ridges off with the Dremel, and everything will be hunky-dory, right? Probably not. Probably not. I want to show you some other drawings here. Let's see. That's the same one. Let's jump down to this one. Oh, you can see it. I don't need to pull that up. So this is something intriguing to me. Now, this, I assume, let me pull my Gen 3 frame up here. I assume that something very similar to this already exists in the back of the frame. These are the rails for the slide to reciprocate on. This is back where the beaver tail is, or the tang, whatever you want to call it, on the frame is. So this piece, which I'm sure there's something similar to this that already exists, is embedded and injection molded into the plastic. Okay? And I assume these two perforations are to like anchor that into the injection. But if you look, there's these ridges on the back of these two inserts. Okay? Which I thought was interesting. If you look at a Gen 3 frame, and we'll look at the Gen 5 frame too. So obviously this is just a frame. There's nothing in it, right? Let's look at, come on, focus, focus, focus. Look at this. Those ridges do not exist on the Gen 3 frame. Well, this is really good video. Let's look at the Gen 5 frame. Oh, come on now. Focus. There we go. So we see that Gen 5 does have ridges, but they're polymer. So I don't know how those GLOCK switches are used. I don't know if the frame has to be modified, if the plastic needs to just be trimmed off on those Gen 3s through Gen 5s, whatever associates with that switch. But GLOCK decided, hey, let's put this, which I'm assuming is going to be steel, embedded into the plastic polymer of the frame to make it more difficult to be modified. Now, I can only assume that that's what that's for. I thought this was rather interesting. And when I was going through these patent drawings, let's see. When I was going through these drawings, there was a trigger mechanism that was a little bit different than what I would assume we'd see the other ones. Also, interesting enough, we see, if this is actually the Gen 6 that's being submitted, we see front and rear serrations, and we see the back plate. And look at this notch. I wonder, I haven't done this yet. I'm going to look here on the Gen 5. That is indeed different than the Gen 5 back plate, and very much different than the Gen 3 back plate. So that's definitely going to be different there to associate with the new insert in the back of the slide, or the frame rather. What is also interesting within the patent documentation is they have somehow a takedown that you do not have to press the trigger. I'm not sure if it's in the slide lock or how exactly that's what it looked like in the drawings, but I don't know 100% for sure. Remember, on the GLOCK, as you take down the slide, or take down the firearm, stinking mic, you have to pull the old little slide thing here off of the lock to get it down, and you press the trigger. There was lots of instances where people were stupid and shot themselves or the floor, or their TVs, taking down their GLOCKs. Well, within this patent documentation is a a takedown method that you do not have to depress the trigger to keep anything from being discharged. Now, anytime you take a firearm apart, you should double check, and recheck again that the gun is unloaded. But you can't fix stupid, I guess, in some cases. So that is also within this patent design. It's some kind of a safe takedown procedure, which I'm really curious to see how that works. Let's see. Are there any other interesting images on here? I think, yeah, I don't think so. Do you guys want me to look at anything else specifically? I thought this was rather interesting. So again, you can jump to worldwide.espacenet.com. Maybe I'll just share the link in the pinned comment, because every time I put something in the description, I get flagged for some reason. It's super annoying. Anyway, I thought this was really intriguing. Obviously, GLOCK is covering their butts. But I really think, like I mentioned in the last episode or 2 episodes ago, I don't remember when we talked about this last time, I think GLOCK, looking at those 2022 patents, GLOCK was already working on the Gen 6 3 years ago. They were refining the process. They were getting things figured out. It was a go. It was a green light. I think the lawsuits within the United States against GLOCK were some sort of catalyst to bring them to market quicker. So, rather interesting. Now, should they have caved? No, I don't think so. Now, GLOCK is promising that you'll still have support for all your previous generations of your firearms. And I'm hoping that many of the parts still correlate. I guess we'll see. I find it interesting. Again, these patent drawings, I think they're super intriguing. I'm not going to show you the trigger patent that I'd found, but it was a little bit different. And maybe that was for the performance trigger. I found one for the performance trigger, but the one that they showed, and I don't remember what patent number it is, it was different. There was something else going on within the trigger mechanism. Still had the bar and everything else as part of it, but there was something else going on, and I guess we'll see. I'm just looking at these takedown or these drawings just a little bit more here to see. Looks like it's got a flared magwell, which will be fun. I imagine it's going to be very similar frame-wise to the Gen 5s. I don't know. I'm really curious to see how this all goes together. What do you guys think about GLOCK? Do you think they caved? Do you think this is just part of a marketing strategy? Do you think they'll bring back previous models? They shouldn't take the models off the market. They should have told, like I mentioned earlier. I hope I mentioned earlier. Hopefully that part got caught. They should have told. The state to go get stuffed. But I'm not GLOCK. So anyway, what do you do? That's pretty much all I wanted to share with you guys. I thought both the letter to the DOJ and this patent stuff that I dug up, I thought this was both pretty important to share with you guys. I know there's a lot of folks out there that hate GLOCK. They don't care. Sure, let GLOCK burn. I'm not going to leave GLOCK. I shoot their handguns better than anything else I own. Plus, I shoot them more than anything else I own as well. But I think GLOCK makes a perfectly fine firearm. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I thought once Gaston died and his daughter or wife or whoever she is took over the company, I figured there was going to be some massive changes inside the company. We saw the same thing when Bill Ruger died. Things change. So I really think that the lawsuits played a small part in the decision that GLOCK is making. Still played a part, but I don't think that the lawsuits were as impactful as what we're being led to believe. I could be wrong. I probably am wrong. I mean, I'm wrong all the time. But what do you do? Anyways, that's it. That's the show, you guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Don't forget the Gundies. I know the chances of me winning a Gundy are extraordinarily slim. But voting opens December 1. If my name is in there under the nominations or for the voting, please vote for me. That would be interesting. I'm probably not going to be in there, but that would be awesome. Another way you guys can help me a bunch, and it really, really does help, is first subscribe to the channel. I still have a goal to hit 1,000 subs by the end of the year. It may or may not happen. If you're not subscribed to the channel, just hit the subscribe button. I don't care if you hit the notification bell or not. That doesn't matter to me. If you want to, sure, great, fabulous. Another way that helps a ton is by commenting on these videos. That actually boosts, it shows engagement, and it boosts me up in the algorithm a little bit. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or any other places, leave a rating and a comment. All this stuff helps the show tremendously. I want to be your voice, or at least another voice that you can listen to and trust in the Second Amendment space. I do my best to share what I think is relevant and important. Maybe you think it's lame and dumb, but honestly, I look at some of the other content out there and I'm like, some of these people make content that's really dumb. Man, maybe I'm one of them. I don't know. Either way, like, comment, share, blah, 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 all that other crap that normal people say. But more important, I need you to take somebody shooting. Grow the 2A family. It is more important now than ever before that we share our love for the Second Amendment and the importance of that amendment to those around us. Our spouses, our children, and our community. We need to show that there are responsible firearm owners in this country that care about our rights and care about safety and care about protection from any kind of predator out there. Stay strapped, stay armed, stay safe, and you know what I'm gonna say? Stay range-minded. Love you guys. See you later.
Oh, would you look at that?
Hell yeah. Well, bye.